Countries around the world face many challenges, and probably the most pressing is making ends meet, meaning providing for their citizens to have a decent life. This is why when one looks at them in times of crisis, much can be said about readiness and about governance. When COVID-19 hit the world, many developed countries went through an unparalleled crisis since World War II. It is with this fact in the background that we sit back and we look at how this country and its government managed to handle the issue. And one can safely say that there is something good that's going on and is foreseen for the future. Good evening. You're watching The Business Insider. I'm Ayman Salah. Our weekly program tackles events affecting economies and business, and we aim to bring you the inside story. Welcome back to the Business Insider, and let's start with the first news item. Egypt's central bank approves contactless payments through mobile phones. The ECB has approved the granting of licenses to allow merchants to accept contactless payments from their customers' mobile phones. It did not say how soon the new system would be in place or who would be eligible to receive the licenses. New legislation and regulatory changes in this country are helping to unleash a surge in new fintech investments and change the way the country's largely unbanked citizens do business. Next news item is that oil prices rose above $80 a barrel for the first time in 3 years. That's during this week. According to the Financial Times, the coal and European gas prices rally to record peaks as traders expect a testy winter. This signals that the world is heading into an energy crunch, likely to weigh on economic growth and a potential global energy crisis. European gas prices rose 10%, thus doubling costs a month apart. The broad rally in energy markets comes amid constrained supply and growing competition between Europe and China, which has pushed gas prices to record levels in recent weeks, with US natural gas prices surging above $6 per million British thermal units, known as BTUs. We'll be back. Welcome back. You're watching The Business Insider. I'm Ayman Salah. Tonight, what we're discussing is the state of energy globally and also expanding investments in petroleum industries. Let's start with this report and then start our discussion.
Petroleum investments contribute to the national economy and help secure the needs of the local market. This is where enhancing the efficiency of petroleum products and services, as well as a system adhered to in the process and expanding investments in the sector, comes into play. Petroleum projects are expanding with international oil companies across the country, namely in the field of research exploration and new discoveries, with continuous efforts aimed at providing petroleum products needed to advance production and development in the country. International developments are important to keep in check as analysts expect soaring prices of oil and gas. The former reached $80 a barrel this week, and the latter hit $6 a BTU. According to the FT analysts, view such a rise of results of less drilling by U.S. shale producers, supply disruption following hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, and fast rising demand, which left stored natural gas stocks well below the 5-year average, forecasting that the price should go much higher if the weather is as cool this winter as some people predict. In the U.S., average petrol prices were up almost 50% in the past year, about $3.19 a gallon, a fact that has the highest authority calling for an investigation. The broad rally in energy markets comes amid constrained supply and growing competition between Europe and China, which has pushed gas prices to record levels in recent weeks. The combination of soaring thermal coal prices, which are up 96% in China this year, and the central government targets to reduce carbon emissions has increased Chinese demand for shipments of liquefied natural gas as a cleaner option to coal-fired power. Record gas prices, owing to a shortfall in global production, are now feeding back into oil markets and expected to push crude higher as some industries shift to using oil to generate power.
Welcome back. So tonight's topic, the state of energy globally and also expanding investments in the oil and gas sector in Egypt. With us on the line is engineer Hussein Al-Ghazawi, an energy expert. A pleasure having you with us on the line. Let's start with the state of the energy globally. What we have seen during the past week is a rise in prices, whether we're talking oil or we're talking gas, on both fronts. How is this affecting the global energy market?
Good evening, Mr. Ayman, and good evening to all your viewers. As you mentioned, and as your report actually spoke about, it is the same cycle. When oil price or gas price goes down, investment goes down significantly. We have seen what happened with the shale oil and the shale gas, in U.S. cutting the investment. Definitely after the COVID-19, we had a low demand, even to the point in April of 2020, the oil price were in negative because they couldn't find the place to store the oil they already purchased. But now we are coming back to, most of the country are getting back to normal. Activity is coming back, but the cycle takes time to start reinvestment again. You spoke about the gas prices getting high, oil prices, and we have seen what's happening. So we have seen this cycle before when we had the economy collapse in 2008, investment down. It's unfortunate, and also we have new component now with the world going to reduce the carbon emission, and that's a new actually in the dilemma of the energy market. So everybody's looking for clean energy. We have seen what happened with the COVID. The world cannot afford to exceed the 1.5 degrees in temperature. So there is definitely a lot of challenging facing the energy sector. We spoke before, and as I said, I strongly believe that the oil price and gas price towards the end of the year, probably with Q1 as well, will go definitely high, and that will allow the exploration and production company to reinvest again.
All right. One of the things that is affecting the markets globally is the global powerhouse China. Due to the climate change and to the need to bring down global warming, China is moving towards clean energy, moving towards utilizing or consuming much more gas than petroleum, and thus affecting the price of gas, and the price of gas is rising. How do you see this affecting Europe?
It will definitely put further pressure on Europe. Europe remains a huge customer or huge market for LNG, so definitely that will impact the gas prices in Europe. And actually, probably, if we look at it from Egypt perspective, that will we definitely have a surplus of gas, and in addition, have a surplus of gas. We have also the facility of our LNG, and we know there is talks about getting the gas from Aphrodite in Cyprus to Egypt. Egypt is talking about providing gas through Jordan and Syria to help Lebanon. So as far as, and that definitely will support and our position. We are the energy hub of the Mediterranean and Africa. So for us, it's a good news with our gas surplus, but definitely for Europe, back to your question, I think definitely Europe will be under pressure with the increase. We'll see a significant increase in the LNG prices, especially with the winter, as they expected will be a cold winter this year.
All right, and one of the things that that is making headlines, or a piece of news that is making headlines, is the situation in England and the shortage in petroleum products available to the market. Where does this come into play?
Very, very, very interesting. I mean, we have seen actually North Sea in UK had a successful oil discoveries in 80s in the North Sea, but the decline rate in the North Sea, whether it's oil or gas, is really impacting the market and demand in Europe. We saw today in the shortage of the fuel in UK. So definitely it's another factor. Declining in the discoveries happen, whether it's UK, whether it's even Norway, which is another main producer of oil and gas. They have a high rate of declining in the production. So I strongly believe, despite what is happening, there will be still a need for the Middle East, Africa, oil and gas in the coming years. Definitely the entire world is moving to less carbon emission and makes the gas more important definitely than
well, with
oil.
With the rise of the prices of gas, especially now due to the increased demand in China, this will affect the European markets and will affect the European consumer, which will find it much more expensive to, let's take for example, heating homes.
Hello?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Can you come back if you don't mind, Mr. Ayman?
All right. What I was saying is, with the rise in the prices of gas, now you're reaching $6 per BTU. This will affect the consumer in Europe, especially with winter coming in. Is this a worrying factor for Europeans at this time, and how will this affect us here at home? Okay,
it definitely will impact the consumer in Europe, but we have to acknowledge that Europe has an excellent network when it comes to natural gas supplies, whether it's they have the pipeline coming from Russia. So in terms of securing the gas, definitely I don't think they will have a problem securing the gas. But in terms of paying more for the gas, definitely that will be the case. That will also support us to get our LNG facilities more active, because one of the issues Egypt faced was the LNG prices went down in 20s, that we couldn't operate our LNG at a full capacity, and they were idle for some time. That was so. Now I think the chance for our existing LNG facility to be more active and export to Europe. Actually, with also there are, as I said, decline in Europe in the gas production. Also, Algeria have faced in the last 5 years significant, which is one of the main suppliers to LNG to Europe. So that will give Egypt and hopefully also for Libya, when they are active again, chance to provide gas to Europe through LNG facilities.
Where is Russia in all of this?
Russia have a lot of gas, and I think they will enjoy in the coming few months the increase in prices of gas. They have an excellent infrastructure supporting gas to Europe. So I think that it will be good time for Russia in the coming few months after the last couple of years where all the main gas producer and oil producer countries, their economy suffered and they had significant deficit. So I think it will be a good time for them to, they wouldn't have a problem supplying the demand if you're referring to that from their gas. They don't have that problem.
Some analysts went as far as saying that we might be entering a new global energy crisis. Would you agree?
Partially. I agree, but I don't think will be as severe as what we have seen before. The renewable energy, last time we had crisis, were not as strong as it is now. I mean, look to Egypt. When it comes to electricity we produce 20% of our electricity from renewable. China had excelled a lot in the renewable, the entire world. So I think, yes, I agree, it will be a crisis, but not necessarily as bad as what we have seen before.
The correlation between energy prices, the economy and politics, the two sides of the same coin. Now, the rise in prices, the shortage in petroleum products, does this signal a time for instability in some parts of the world, especially when one takes into consideration the political changes happening as well in some countries?
Definitely will impact that. It's as you said, it's a coin with two sides. So I think definitely will contribute to that. The consumer I wouldn't say will be instability in Europe. No, Europe is stable, but consumer will suffer. But definitely, I think the time has come for the entire world, and if I talk about Africa in particular, to stop all this instability and think of development. I think we in Egypt have came a long way, and I think Africa need to copy what we have done, and we need stability because we need the resources, and I'm sure there will be some issues there.
I'm taking the situation in England as an example, with the long queues in the gas stations and the shortage. Of course, some would say it's because of the Brexit and the lack of delivery drivers or truck drivers that transport the petroleum products. However, this will definitely have a repercussion. And having a repercussion will also affect the economic situation, will also affect the prices of oil, which will rise further and further. This is why I come back to my question to you again, the global impact and the effect on the global energy situation, and is it a prelude to a global energy crisis? That's one part. The second part is, you know, there's a high-level investigation which was ordered by the Biden administration into why the gallon of petroleum, the gallon of petrol gallon reached 3.19 cents a gallon, which used to be around $1 a gallon. So with such prices and the effect on the stability, thus can have a domino effect on the prices and the stability of the energy situation globally.
As I said at the beginning, I mean, U.S. used to import a lot of oil and a lot of gas. What we have seen in the last 10 years with the change of the technology, or even probably 15 years, with the shale gas and shale oil, U.S. became number one when it comes to production, and all this new LNG facility in the eastern side of the U.S. only happened because people were investing in the oil and gas and
billions of dollars.
Sorry?
Billions of dollars at the time.
Billions of dollars. But the crunch happened when definitely the COVID took place, and a lot of projects were put on
hold.
On hold. So again, people think this is not an on-off switch. The cycle takes time to start. A lot of companies in U.S. went bankruptcy when definitely all this production went down and all this investment went down. So the cycle will take time to come back. With all this, definitely will be some.
And now what we're witnessing is a higher demand as well for petroleum products, especially with the return of the transportation, the air transport system, the airliners that are now moving at a faster pace than when the COVID-19 had started. So there is an acceleration of demand and a shortage of supply.
Acceleration of demand, shortage of supply. We saw what happened to the freight charges all over the world. We saw what happened in the increase of the raw material as well. It is definitely, I think we will see a lot of interesting things happening. Quite frankly, I was back to if you allow me, back to UK, fuel shortage and what we have seen actually even during the COVID-19 was shortage of supplies in general in Europe. I think that in Europe I'm sure they will look at the supply chain process. It was very interesting and when we were seeing on the TV reports and the supermarket lack of basic stuff in Europe. Right. During the COVID-19 story. So I think the supply chain process and the chain itself definitely, I think the world is going to see changes. Relying on the globalization definitely will change. I think we'll have more regionalization, if you see what I mean, compared to what people
and localization as well.
And localization, definitely. It will be regionalization and localization.
That brings us, let me take it from there and come back home. How would you assess what has been done pre, during, and now? And here I'm referring to COVID.
I don't want to sound biased. I think Egypt did an outstanding when it comes to be prepared to react definitely during COVID. I think the economic reform helped Egypt. We all been there. We haven't seen any shortage of food or basic stuff. And when we needed the mask, we needed the alcohol, we needed all the sanitizers to cope with the change in the norm dealing with the COVID. I think Egypt did an outstanding job. We have seen also the leadership also focusing now on have self-satisfaction, and when it comes to vaccination, Egypt is making our own COVID vaccination. I'm really proud and happy of Egypt and the government reaction during the COVID time, and I think it is proven. It's a fact. It's not just. It is a fact. We all have been through it, and we all have lived.
How about the most significant projects that were executed in the country during the past 6 years when it comes to oil and gas?
Definitely, I think Zohr will remain a flagship the gas in terms of from the time of production, from the discovery, to production in 28 months never happened in the world. Zohr is not the only one. We have seen also Atoll and other fields in the Mediterranean, North as well. So I think Egypt, for me, going from net exporter to
net importer
to self-sufficient, and again net exporter in a span of 3-4 years, that's definitely something we are all proud of. And I think the focus now, and I think as your report said, there is a lot of investment happening. The major E&P companies are in the Mediterranean and also in the Red Sea. We'll see an increasing of exploration activity again in the Mediterranean, and the Red Sea will follow as well, because it's very important to have new discovery to maintain, because there is a natural declining, whether we like it or not, to remain having a surplus. Because I think back again to your question, what we have done also in the electricity, we all remember the blackout in 2014, and we were producing probably 24 gigawatts, where our peak was about 27. We have a lot of shortage. Now Egypt have a electricity capacity of 58 gigawatts. We're exporting electricity to Sudan, we're exporting to Jordan, now talking about exporting electricity to Saudi with 300 megawatts. Even Africa, Europe interconnect to Cyprus. Egypt will have the potential, once this interconnect high voltage direct current cable completed, to reach to the Europe electricity grid through Cyprus and Crete in Greece.
What would you say are the main attractions or incentives for local and international investors to come into this sector here?
I think Egypt, what Egypt done in the last few years of encouraging the investors to come to Egypt, with a new investment law, and whether it's in general, if I divert to the mining sector, for example, having this new mining law, also the new regulation in the E&P company. So I think Egypt has done excellent job in having this new law, agile law,
the legislative framework.
Exactly. That's one. We have human resources, skilled human resources. We cannot ignore. So that's definitely attracting a lot of people. You don't have to worry about.
Your career was in international oil companies throughout your years in the sector. If you were still in an international company, what would you tell your board in terms of investing in Egypt?
I will tell them to come, not only because, again, it's a business. I think the return of investment in Egypt is good. Egypt have jumped in when it comes to the transparency index. We have came a long way. The significant improvement in the infrastructure. Egypt has spent in the last 7 years $100 billion on the infrastructure, 1.7 trillion Egyptian pound on the infrastructure, the ports, the roads, the bridges. So
the tunnels,
of
the
course,
railroads, right.
The railway. So talk about infrastructure, new legislation, investment law, return of investment, skilled and highly qualified human capital. Definitely, I would have that pitch to my board, telling them, hey, come, invest more. The return on investment is definitely will be in our favor at Mahmoud, or in the favor of any international company to come and invest in Egypt.
On that note, what would you say needs to be done to further promote investing in the sector? What needs to be done in the coming stage locally?
I think the digital transformation is going on. I think I would love to see a faster pace when it comes to digital transformation. I see the leadership of the country is definitely focusing and re-emphasizing. However, for me, I definitely would like to see more of the digital transformation, because that will support our position. And I think with all this, with the new capital, with all these new cities coming, will be an excellent platform for the digital city, smart city, to start implementing faster in Egypt.
That's one. What would be other ingredients?
What will be other ingredients? I think, well, we have done.
Are you looking for further financial incentives, tax breaks, funding? What would you say needs to be done on that side of encouraging investors in the sector?
It's not about tax relief or financial incentive. I think it's, let me put it that way, still in the organization of some of the government offices, probably people at the mid-level, they don't receive the message as is not cascaded down properly. I think we need
so managerial reform?
And I think it is happening now with the move to the new capital. It's not just moving physically. There is a need to change
an approach.
Mindset. There is a change in the mindset. When you talk to senior people, the message is clear. It's very clear in everybody's mind.
Needs to trickle down. Engineer Hussein Ghazawi, always a pleasure talking to you. Engineer Hussein Ghazawi, energy expert, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for joining us here on this show, and seems like a booming sector. All we have to do is hope that the energy situation globally papers away peacefully and stably. Thanks for joining us here on the Business Insider. I'm Ayman Salah. Good night.